So welcome everybody to Discovering Buddhism, How to Meditate. This is week 4. We're going to spend some time meditating today. We're going to do a few different types of meditation. What are the, straight into it, what are the 2 types of meditation that we talked about last week? Anybody? If you want to talk, you have to unmute yourself.
Analytical? Non-analytical.
Good, analytical, non-analytical, great. So we're going to do both of those today. We're going to start with a analytical meditation. Which 2 topics do you think we'll be starting with? We do the same every week, you should know by now.
Non-analytical.
No, we're going to start with an analytical one. Refuge and Mighty, yeah. Why do we start with that and not breathing meditation?
Yeah.
Because we're setting the motivation.
Exactly. So if we start with that one, it means that the calm abiding, or the watching the breath meditation, also becomes covered by the motivation. If we start with that one, then we haven't really motivated for that one necessarily. So just kind of making sure that everything is kind of as powerful as possible. And then we're going to look at today, there's something called the 9-round breathing meditation. Has anyone heard of that before?
No.
9-round breathing meditation.
No.
That's going to be quite to do. Edita's nodding her head there. She knows these 9 rounds. Great. All right then. So without further ado, let me just share these slides for this week. I can remember how to do it. Okay, hopefully we can all see that. So let's just find a comfortable posture for this meditation together. And what we're looking at here is 2 minds, as we mentioned, refuge and bodhicitta. Actually, we talked a lot about refuge in the past 2 weeks in different classes. Geshe Jampal has been explaining a bit about the refuge in the Wednesday night class. And Geshe Tashi also he's been giving some teachings online on Sunday afternoons, and he's been talking about refuge. So it's come up quite a bit. And tomorrow's Lam Rim meditation, first thing in the morning, will be refuge, so we're up to that stage. So it comes from 2 aspects, 2 causes. It comes from a concern for suffering, a kind of deep concern about the experiences that you are going to have in the small and middle scopes, and then the sufferings of all living beings when we look at great scopes. None of us wants suffering, right? None of us wants to experience difficulty. So it's important to use the Lam Rim meditation, especially middle scope Lam Rim meditations, to become aware of how we actually fit in the cycle of samsara and the things that push us and pull us around, and understanding the nature of our existence. So we have to become pretty familiar with that to understand how it's not actually good enough. Put it lightly. It's not good enough, an enlightened existence. It's out of our control, and we're pushed and pulled and bullied, if you like, by the afflictions. So we need to recognize that, first of all, as the first noble truth, and then look at what the causes are. The supreme dictator being ignorance. And then there's a way out of that. There's a freedom from that, and the path is the 4th noble truth. And most of these meditations that we're doing are that path, that 4th noble truth. And who we are looking for refuge in is the Buddha as the teacher or the doctor. If you take an analogy of the medicine, the Dharma is the medicine itself. This is the actual refuge. If we go to a doctor with a sickness, we're not just going to spend all the time worshipping and listening to the doctor and not taking the medicine. That would be very bizarre, right? So we have to actually take the medicine the doctor is prescribing, otherwise there's no chance to get well. And the same here, the Buddha is explaining what we need to do with our minds to become enlightened and liberate all living beings. We have to actually do it ourselves. The Buddhas can't give us their realizations. They can't take away our negative karmas, imprints. They can't just wash everything away for us. All they can do is explain. And then the Sangha, the third refuge jewel, those beings who have realized emptiness directly, who are helping us on the path. Arya Sangha, sometimes they're called. So just hold that mind for a few moments. The mind that strongly wants to turn to those three for support, with confidence in those three, coming from the understanding that ourselves and all living beings are experiencing difficulty, and they have the ability to do this, to save us, rescue us from difficulty. And then we expand our hearts and minds to encompass all living beings, thinking just as I myself don't want suffering, neither does all the other limitless living beings. So moved by a sense of closeness with those living beings. And you can't bear their suffering, only want them to have happiness. The bodhicitta is the mind that wants to become enlightened for their welfare. So include as many of those living beings, and as strong as you can, hold that mind that we're doing this session together for that reason, to become enlightened for the sake of all living beings. So then, with that positive mind, let's go straight into a watching the breath meditation. This is a non-analytical meditation, so that we can have some kind of stability and stillness in the mind, which will help us with the different realizations in the Lam Rim, but also of this session. It's a good habit to get into regularly. So let's just spend a few moments just watching the breath. Already in the posture, you've already settled the body to some extent in the mind. So just then change your awareness now to the breath as your object of meditation. And you're holding a stream of awareness, a stream of consciousness on that, in and out of the breath, just 1 or 2 minutes. And then when you're ready, just end your meditation gently. Okay, so somebody just joined as we were doing the meditation, which is Rebecca. Hi there, Becca. You're very welcome. Nice to see you. If at any point anyone has any questions, just say this because you joined. You just unmute yourself and ask questions, and I'm happy to see if I can help. We do have a little section in the class where we break out and do some discussion as well. So just to recap then, how we've been running this course so far. Week 1 was what is meditation, and we looked a bit about the posture. We looked at the term gom in Tibetan, which means to become familiar, and we also looked at the 7-point posture just to get a grip on how the body is really important when we meditate. Week 2, we were looking at some of the details of meditation, about motivation and dedication, why that's important. That's the beginning and the end of a Buddhist class, or a Buddhist meditation, or a puja, or a teaching. And being aware, we looked at what exactly being aware means, and the consequences of focusing the mind in this very prescribed environment where you're holding an object like refuge or the breath, or for a long period of time, and actually how that introspection into the mind actually has lots of different effects, positive effects throughout the day. So we talked a bit about that, and then these favorite 2 mental functions called mindfulness and introspection. Can anyone tell me what their job is, mindfulness and introspection?
Mindfulness is focusing on the object, and introspection is making sure that the mind is focused on the object.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, good. Last week we looked at the 2 types of meditation, which you've already mentioned were analytical and non-analytical. What's an example, Maggie, on the spot, of a analytical meditation?
You mean an example of a particular analytical meditation?
Yes.
Equanimity.
Very nice.
Precious rebirth. No, I've forgotten the word. Precious rebirth. Yeah.
Human
rebirth. Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. Very nice. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Adita, can you give me an example of a non-analytical meditation that isn't watching the breath?
So we can maybe focus on imagining a Buddha image in our mind.
Yeah. Would that be an actual statue in a picture, or is that more a mental image?
It's mental, internal image, probably that big above our head.
Yeah, very nice. Good.
Inside our heart.
We also looked a little bit, actually it's not on that list, but we also looked a little bit last week at some of the obstacles to meditation. And we described, well, I mentioned, there's lots of different ways of describing obstacles, but I described, 2 ways, like kind of put them into 2 categories. When we're meditating itself, it can go either one of 2 ways. Stuart, do you remember what those kind of 2 extremes, if you like, or 2 ways that we can meditate?
Dullness and excitement, were they?
Dullness and excitement, good, yeah. Whichever way we're describing it, good, yeah. Different texts describe it differently. Some people say lethargy, and then we get confused. It's like in the Lamrim Chenmo, it describes a few types of lethargy. So yeah, but basically you're off the object because you're distracted and excited, or you're kind of focused perhaps there, but you're really sinking and cloudy, and then, so good, very good, yeah. John, if you're meditating, let's say you're meditating at home and you find yourself falling asleep, what's some ways you could counteract that? Happens to me all the time.
You could look at the time of day that you're meditating. So you could maybe change the time. You could maybe look at your posture.
Good. Yeah. What would you do to the posture exactly?
Make sure that
Stop us
you're
falling asleep.
yeah. So make sure that your back's nice and straight. Make sure that your head's not, that you're not slouching. Make sure
Good,
that
good. Exactly. Just put yourself up a bit. I just had a
Yeah.
message from Rebecca. It's up to you, Rebecca, if you want to stay. I know you're deciding whether you want to stay, but we basically, every class you'll learn something new, but we are obviously in the middle of a series. So you're very welcome to stay if you want to. You decide. It's up to you. You're very welcome to stay.
Very kind. Sorry that I must have missed that on the course description. I think because it sounds so good, I think I'd prefer to come back and start from the beginning.
All right. You're very welcome to. No problem. Yeah.
Thank you very
No
much.
problem. Nice to see you, Rebecca.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
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 So week 4 then is where we are now, using meditation to deal with disturbing emotions, and also going to look at the 9-round breathing meditation. So we're going to do a bit of that today as well. So let's go straight in then. Thank you. Very nice to hear your responses there. So here's a quote from Lama Yeshe. I'm saying that if you want to be happy, eradicate your attachment. Cut your concrete concepts. The way to cut them is not troublesome, just change your attitude. Switch your attitude, that's all. It's not really a big deal. It's really skillful, reasonable. The way Buddhism explains this is reasonable. It's not something in which you have to super believe. I'm not saying you have to try to be Superwoman or Superman. It's reasonable and logical. Simply changing your attitude eliminates your concrete concepts. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, right? We're going to be talking about changing the way we think. One of Lama Yeshe's great books was that we have in the center actually, or you can download it for free, I think now. It's called Being Your Own Therapist. You're the boss. You decide, what minds you're going to allow in and what minds you're going to reject, or kind of try and lessen the habitual patterns that mind brings up. So what is it that's going to help us do that? So there's a couple of things. One of them is the power of familiarity, becoming more familiar with positive states of mind so that they become stronger, kind of mental gym, working out those mental muscles of compassion, of kindness, of patience, so that they become really familiar, so that they can be kind of drawn upon at a moment's notice very easily. Then introspection, these mindfulness introspection, that is a part of the mind that's really important for spiritual practice, even throughout the day. So we can check, if we're not sure, a lot of the time we don't think about what the mind's doing. So it might be worthwhile checking at some point, what is my mind on right now? Is it in a positive space? Is it dwelling in something negative? And if it's fine, then great, just leave it. You don't need to keep checking every 2 seconds if it's already in a positive space. But it's worthwhile checking sometimes. And then if you find the mind has gone somewhere low, has gone somewhere unhelpful, or it's projecting heavily things that aren't there, like afflictions do. We talked about that in the last module, right? Afflictions have this ability to project wrongly onto things and events. So if we can see it's doing that, if we can see we're exaggerating, if we see we're getting anxious, if we can find that in our mind early enough, then we can change our attitude. Yeah. It's very simple. You just change it, right? Oh yeah, she's saying it here, right? You just change. Simple. Yeah. I once remember asking a teacher a question, about motivation, or was somebody else's question, I can't remember, the teaching we were listening to. What if we don't have a good motivation? What if we've had a really bad motivation for something, laying on guilt and stuff, as we usually do in the West? And then the teacher said, well, just change it. Just change your motivation, It's quite simple, right? Don't just get worried that you haven't motivated correctly for something, or you've motivated badly. Just change your motivation and continue, right? So we have the power. Let's take a look at then some common disturbing emotions and some antidotes here. There's a lot of detail actually in each of these points that we're going to look at. I've just chosen 4 here. And they have lots of study that we need to do. And then obviously the practice of that, to meditate on these things, we have to know what it is to meditate on. So we're studying a lot here because to be clear about what it is we're supposed to be meditating on, and clear about what the advantages of some of these meditations. There's so many different types of analytical meditations, many, many, many different types. So some of them are relevant to us, some of them maybe not so relevant, some of them are essential, you can't do without, so we have to work out which ones are which. So here I've just chosen a few. So you remember hopefully I've talked about before, the kind of what's called these 3 root delusions. Anyone know what the 3 root delusions are? Or the grand title?
Ignorance, attachment, and anger? No.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Sometimes we call it aversion.
Aversion.
Or anger. Yeah, ignorance, attachment, aversion. We say I think the reason why I say aversion is because it isn't necessarily like the grosser stages of anger. So here up at the top, anger and aversion, craving and attachment. So anger is, sorry, I thought something was falling through the roof. So anger is like the gross, some of the gross parts of aversion. So if you're screaming at somebody in hate, or you're kind of got your hands around their throat, strangling them to death, that's quite strong, right? It does happen, right? It happens all around the world. And that's anger. And anger is a very strong wish to harm, wants to harm somebody or something. Yeah, there's a strong wish to harm. So aversion is way, way back in the chain, but it still has this quality of pushing away with something we don't like. So we want to get rid of, we want to take it out of the picture. For all kinds of reasons, so these are really important to study and figure out exactly what these are. And then looking at the disturbing attitude underneath. Attachment is like the base, and kind of permeates all these needy, grasping minds, and craving or kind of greed or kind of neediness. They're the kinds of when it gets to the extreme. Does that make sense? And as Edita quite pointed out, the root of all those, the root of those 2 is ignorance, which misunderstands how we and all phenomena exist. On the basis of that, anger and attachment and aversion arise, and therefore the whole plethora of afflictive emotions arise on the basis of those. So here we're talking about the gross versions, to be honest, because we all have aversion, attachment, and ignorance to some, unless we're, arhats or Buddhas, so at our level, we have these. It'll be a while before we get rid of them yet. What we can do is we can stop the gross parts of those, kind of exposing danger to ourselves and others. So patience is a way to stop before anger gets a hold. Now, patience isn't just kind of gritting your teeth and waiting till things pass, which is what we tend to think of as patience in the West. It's much more profound than that. It has 3 different divisions, and it has this sense of that you're happy to accept, the difficulties. You're willing to take them on. You have it's a brave attitude, right? It's able to take on difficulties so that it can get better at them. As Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, there is nothing that does not become easier through familiarization. Everything has become familiar, become easier with practice, right? And the same for kind of accepting difficulties, because difficulties are going to come whether we like them or not. But how we react and how we deal with those is up to us, right? So there's a wonderful teachings in Shantideva and other texts about patience. So it's really worthwhile to meditate on. And then the exact opposite of the wish to harm is the wish to help. So that's like love, kindness, compassion. So when the mind, to kind of switch one out for the other, the 2 can't exist in the mind at the same time, the wish to harm and the wish to help. So if you've got one in, the other one is kicked out. But patience is a better one, usually, because that stops you getting to anger in the first place. And to be honest, if it's a really extreme form of anger, you're just gonna have to wait till it's finished. I don't think many people can switch it quickly when it's gross stages. So it's important to catch it much earlier on. and is the most destructive one out of all the, the gross delusions. Anger is the worst. There's no situation in which it's okay to hate. Never. No. Craving and attachment. So that's an interesting one. We all have that to some extent too. We all have different objects we run to on the basis of craving and attachment, but the kind of theme is the same. It's like a stickiness. It wants to be stuck to the objects. It can't be bear to be without them. If it's got them, it's fantastic and it can't be bear to be separated. If it hasn't got them, it does everything it can to be stuck to them. Yeah. And it's so tricky, this mind, because it feels like it's bringing happiness. It feels like attachment is working for us. It's like our friend and it's giving us happiness. But it's a big deception, that one, really big deception. Because when you have these objects, they don't last and they make us dissatisfied. And so we kind of crave them again, around and around we go. It's such a tricky one, that one. Lama Geshe says, you can talk about attachment for a whole year and we still won't begin to understand it. It's really profound, that one. So we just think about, one of the biggest attachments is looking at, people and beautiful bodies, for example. So, we can meditate on the unclean nature of a body. That's a nice one that monks and nuns do, for example. We can think about impermanence. We haven't got long, so stop wasting your time on these objects that you can't take with you anyway. We talked about that on the meditation on Monday morning, actually. Impermanence, suffering, the unsatisfactory nature of all these things because they change. They're just going to leave us like empty-handed and unsatisfied at the end. So there's lots of ways that impermanence and thinking about the suffering nature can help with those cravings. Jealousy, that's an aversion category one. That's a really nasty one, actually. It's a mind that it would be happy, if somebody else suffered. And it can't bear that someone's got something you haven't, and they'd be really happy, if they just tripped or if they made a mess of things or if they didn't get what they wanted. You'd be happy about that. Such an awful, ugly mind, right? Jealousy. So the way to counter that one is to think about, to rejoice, so they're going to feel happy for the things that they have and the things that they're doing. Or, as I said here, should they meditate? All beings have Buddha nature. All beings have the potential for full enlightenment within them. They just need to work out the causes and conditions. You're all going to get to enlightenment in the end. So that might help. Pride. There's different types of pride mentioned in the text, but usually the one we're thinking about here is the one that thinks you're better because you've got something the others haven't, a skill or a quality or possessions, etc. And you think you're extra somehow, puffed up, So then one of the things the text says is, look at like definitions and divisions of something and study some more, and you realize actually there's a lot you don't know. But you need to bring yourself down a bit. Interesting, right? So that's just a few. In the book How to Meditate, Kathleen MacDonald has a few more there in the texts on how, what's it called? Stages in meditation. There's a book by Kamala Sheila. There's a nice translation of that, which has more explanations about these meditations for disturbing emotions. Meditations for all kinds of different afflictions and problems that we have as spiritual practitioners, right? Here's a popular one that we mentioned before, calming the mind by watching the breath. That's a very common one. Especially, it's a good place to start, that one. Overthinking, busy mind, can't stop it racing, etc. Why are we mentioning that one here on separate slides? Because 9-round breathing meditation is doing some of that also. It's not an analytical meditation, it's using the breath, but in a strange way. Maybe not strange to the people who know what they're doing, but strange to us perhaps. Yeah. So let's go to some explanation of this. And who else to explain this better than His Holiness the Dalai Lama? What should happen next is if I click this button, His Holiness will start a short teaching of about 10 to 12 minutes explaining the 9-round breathing meditation. So make sure your volume's whacked up so you can hear it. I'm going to mute myself and listen with you. Yeah.
Guru says, you should we do this breathing, the 9 rounds of breathing together? What would you like to do? Just fun. Just a fun. Oh. Then the chance to check to stay. Those people go on chair and all right, not problem. Always problem. That's enough. The Naroba's 6 yoga practice. These practices quite clear mentioned. That's enough. Hold your hand and form a fist with your thumb inside. You see, thumb. You see, the ring finger at the base of the ring finger. Press your thumbs on the base of the ring fingers. Then hold, make fists. While I do, you see, just as a copy. This is a muscle. This hand. First to the right, left. First to the left. So, here. The first one. Now second. On this side. Oh, right hand and left hand. Now both, now hand like this. Now here, one difference is when breathing in the way, now in like that. With out like that. Now again 3 times. Okay. So this practice, I think you can do particularly when your mind a little bit sort of disturbed or the turbulence, right? Agitated. Then completely forget about the causes and just as a concentrate breathing and do that. That could be something like tranquilizer. the disturbed mind somehow neutralize, like that. So of course, then there's a according to the tantric practitioner, if you see someone who really is seriously practice tantra, and then of course we have to visualize the as I mentioned earlier, lalana, rasana, avadhuti, then these chakras, and then the certain area here or here or here. This is some letter, slivers, like that. Or here, okay, like that. So then our mind quite sort of calm. Then visualize the object. Generally, for Buddhist image of Buddha, I think this size, 1 inch, in front of you, the Buddha image should be at the level of your mid eyebrow, and distance about 4 feet, 5 feet distance, and the height of Buddha image, and Buddha image, very, very bright one, a lot of light, and also imagine heavy, so that they visualize heavy, some sort of effect. Your mind stands still, right? Not going into mental thinking. No, to help to not scattered. Then bright, a lot of light, that helps your mind more clear, not dull, like that. And then to Christian practitioner, yes, Jesus Christ, or Mary, Carrie, the young Jesus Christ. Jesus, wonderful, really symbol of love. But then, Muslim practitioner, perhaps even Mecca, the temple, visualize. Now here, the object, not the seeing object. But firstly, we look Buddha statue or Jesus Christ or Mary or Mecca, or then reflect in our mind. The eye consciousness now eventually should be inactive, not functioning. Because of the cease. Actually, because of the firstly neutralize, then the sixth mind, then concentrate on the image of that object in the mind. Once that get used and remain longer period, then the sensorial consciousness automatically become very weak. Then no longer any disturbances. Or you see the Buddha or Jesus Christ, or I think Mecca temple, or God in the form of light. That also is possible, I think. Light. That instead of outside, but here inside, in the center of two Hasa, Numani Parati. No, center of two breasts. Oh, yeah. A form of light, or Buddha, or Kasota, Jesus Christ, like that. That object to concentrate our mind. So when you do this, in Master Asanga's Shravaka Bhumi and other texts, there is mention of the image or the reflection of the object in your mind. So then, now the obstacle, mainly two things. One, symptomatic. So one obstacle is the distraction, mental distraction. Antidote or countermeasure for that is mindfulness. You remember the object, your mind fully sort of concentrate on it. Then shishin sharacha. Then you use vigilance to check whether the mind is staying on the object or getting distracted. Then another obstacle, although your mind still remain on the object, but not very clear, not sort of full alert mind, mental state, a little bit sting. That also one great obstacle, particularly is it a long period. Then if that stingness familiarized, that's quite easier. And also you get some kind of relax. So anyway, one of the best method, relaxation. So if that get used, then sharpness of our mind reduce. Very dangerous. So mind remain on the object fully. At the same time, mind should be full alert. So that's important. That the so in order for us to have this clarity of mind when you stay on and focus in meditation, the obstacle is that hinders it is called mental sinking. It is a countermeasure is your mind should be alert, and in order to develop that kind of alertness, is your mind something happy, full of enthusiasm, then that comes some kind of demoralize or hopelessness, then completely sinking. So full sort of the enthusiasm is the main sort of the countermeasure. And then mind becomes more alert like that. So that's way, then through that way, so the most important thing when you cultivate a single-pointed meditation is to build up your mindfulness and this vigilance. So that's about practice of shamatha. This is common. All, I think, ancient Indian tradition is common. Then also, I was told, an ancient sort of Christian practitioner, also same sort of practice. Perhaps I think Muslim also, I think.
Okay, so some wonderful explanations from His Highness there, and actually I've forgotten that he went into looking at those obstacles where the mind can go when it's trying to meditate. And interesting, His Highness mentioning there that the mind has to be, when it's focused on the object, it has to have a kind of brightness and attention, right, and enthusiasm, as Hans described it. So it's not that you're sinking into it and kind of going heavy. If we learn that that's what meditation is, we're going to make us. Sometimes the texts do say you're going to make yourself stupid. You make yourself kind of cloudy and thick, right? Thick in the sense, it's like it's difficult to get through, right? So yeah. Let's look at the 9-round breathing meditation then, just to make sure we all got the information there. So let's just do it again. So the hands with the thumb touching the ring finger, just the base there, and you just lightly make a fist with the hands. Right, you all got that much? Yeah?
Yes.
And then basically, yeah, good. So, so then this honest does this fantastic kind of movement where he puts his hands on his knees and then pulls them up and pushes them out. You know, very strong there. And then we're going to the left first. So then you're putting your right arm under your left armpit, and your left arm goes round to your right nostril. You got it? Let's just do that again. Just that. I'm not sure if it's if you're like going the same way as I am. With the camera, I can't tell. But anyway, I'm just saying left, and hopefully we're all going in the right direction. Okay, so again, hands on the knees. You pull up, and out in front of you. Move to the left. Right arm under the left armpit. That's it. And then round, and we're blocking the right nostril. And then we're going to breathe in through the left. So breathe in. And swap and breathe out. And just repeat again. And out. And breathe in. And out. You can go at your own pace, right? You know, it depends on the size of your nose. I've got quite a big nose and quite big nostrils, so sometimes the finger doesn't do it. So I have to make sure I'm kind of blocking us. I've seen one teacher just kind of explain you can use your thumb kind of block the base of the nostril. That might do it. If you've got a blocked nose, that's going to cause difficulty for you. You'll blow snot everywhere when you breathe out. Sometimes you might find you have to have tissue next to you if you're doing this. I know. So that's 3 of the 9. Does that make sense? Everyone got that? So he's repeating it the other direction, right? So the hands in the same way, so on the knees and pushing out, this time to the right. Left hand here, fist underneath the armpit, then your right arm on your left nostril. And breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. And that's 6 of the 9. I've noticed here that it slides as they're around, but we'll follow what His Holiness says and do left first. That means you'll be covering your left nostril first, not your right nostril, as it says here, number 1. Okay, and the last one is you're breathing through both, in and out through both nostrils, easy enough. But then when you're breathing in, you have the fist slightly clenched. And then when you're breathing out, the fingers are moving out. They're just sat on the knees, but I'm just showing you because I can't show you my knees. Yeah. The mouth is closed throughout all of this, so you're just using the nose to breathe in and out as we would do normally for this breathing meditation. Now, interesting enough, what came up in this meditation for some people is that it's a really good way to quickly calm the mind. So if you find you've got out of control, if there's stuff been going on all day at work or the family or the kids or something, and you kind of, your mind's escalating and you can't sleep or you can't just take a break, then just stop and go through these 9, take space to do these 9 rounds. And there is a big difference actually after you've done this. I always find it helps. Even in the middle of the night, I've got up. If I can't sleep and done this, then it helps. It's a really excellent way. Now, if you're, it's on this mentioned there, if you're a tantric practitioner, if you've got tantric initiations or strong interest in the practice of tantra, then there is visualizations that go with this. Yeah, they're quite complicated to explain here. I can't remember them, but it's something to do with, you're visualizing 3 channels, a central channel and 2 side channels, and they meet at the bottom to come up. So when you breathe in one nostril, it goes down that side channel and then comes up. I can't remember, so I won't say it because I'll say it wrong, but it kind of goes through channels and it's purifying channels. And obviously, if you're breathing in and out, both, it has a certain pattern. There are texts that'll explain it if you want to look into it further. And also, there are different colors for those channels, different ways of visualizing the air with colors. different syllables that go on different parts, etc. So it can get as complex as you like, really. But here we're just, just focusing on the simple, the basic. Yeah. Now this, when I often say in the karma, the watching the breath meditation, to take 3 long deep breaths in and out through the nose. That is a short version of this, really. No, that's just a quick version of that. The last 3. So anyway, I would suggest you try, experiment and see, if it works for you or not. Is there any questions about that? Because it is a little complex, I realize, with the arms and the fingers going everywhere. Have we all got it, the theory, or does it need some more explanation?
Just do only which side first? Is it left or right? Because now I'm confused. Left.
Oh, yeah. His Holiness says go left. So your arms are moving left, which means that when the finger comes round, it'll be covering the right nostril. And then you're breathing in through the left and out through the right. Yeah. So that slide isn't correct. I got it from a website where His Holiness was teaching it. So maybe he explains it differently at different times. But let's just go with left first. Yeah. Okay, let's just pause the recording here because, let me just explain the discussion questions for today. We haven't got much left, but we've done a lot of meditation already today, so we don't have to do too much at the end. So we'll still get a good 5-6 minutes or so of a discussion together. So discuss the different antidotes to disturbing emotions. Did they work for you, or have you tried some of these already? Are they working for you, or do you think they're going to be too difficult? What about the 9-round breathing meditation? How are you finding that? Just explore some of those antidotes to afflictive emotions, or disturbing states of mind. Yeah, sound good? All right, I'm just going to stop the recording then and put you into groups. So just bear with me while I do that. This feedback, anything came up in that discussion that you want to explore further or comment on?
Yeah, I'd like to explore further that 9-round breathing, because I found that really interesting and a lot like a yoga practice of alternate nostril breathing. But I really appreciated that sense of having some physicality involved in steadying your mind. That seemed to have an impact, really, that I will explore. And I think our group mentioned that too, that it, Adita, she'll say, but she does it quite a lot because this came up in a course that she did. So I'd never heard of it before, but, really helpful, I'm sure. Sorry.
So we were wondering about the link for that little YouTube video with the Dalai Lama explaining the 9-round breathing.
You want the link?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm very happy to share that with you.
Good.
Just talk among yourselves while I just remember which browser I used to find it in.
Shall I talk while you're doing that?
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of the antidotes, I said that, and I think John agreed with me about Tonglen. The Tonglen practice to sort of practice loving kindness as an antidote to anger and aversion.
Okay, there's the link in the chat.
Right.
I'll put this on the YouTube video as well if I remember. The one that we upload weekly, so you can get to that YouTube. You basically just have to search for Dalai Lama 9-round breathing, and it's the first one that comes up. It's about 13 minutes. Right. There is something to say. I wonder why that one works so well. I wonder if it's partly because you have to concentrate so hard on lefts and rights and things. Your mind gets quite distracted from what you were thinking before. I don't know. maybe that's part of it. I'm sure it's something more profound than that, but it did occur to me that's maybe what's going on to some extent. Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned, Maggie, it comes from yoga. I hadn't heard that before. Alternate,
yeah, alternate nostril breathing. It's quite a long practice, and it's not so complicated how you put your hands in a mudra, and the purpose of it is that that it does sort of free up and create a through circuit in your mind, in your body, and it is, I find it wonderful, really. It's a really effective practice. Because you are,
there's something to be said, like you say. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, no, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, there's something to be said for, again, getting in a physical mode to meditation. And walking meditation is the one that often Westerns find helpful, or yoga practice itself, or others like Tai Chi, etc., where the body's moving steadily. But they're not, strictly speaking, Tibetan traditions. Tibetan traditions are more like, you might use some of the things to get you there, but then the meditation itself is the body is completely still and the work is all internal. There is no physical movement.
Yes, I realise that.
So it's not to say that one's right or one's wrong necessarily. I'm just pointing out. In the end, it's an internal work. It's not a physical work.
Yeah.
But maybe we let the body go. The sensation, like Solana said, it's like the power of those sense consciousnesses become less. The body being one of them, right? Not ceased, but just very, very weak. So then the power of the mind and the meditation of the mind is where this power goes. Interesting. Yeah, very nice discussion.
Very good. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Now I'm going to read the meditation. So let's just go back to the slides to wrap up then. Let's move on to the next one. I'm just coming back to this quote, really. As I like to do in these classes, come back to the quote. So it's Lama Yeshe's talking here about concepts, isn't he? He's talking about ways that we've conceived of the world, either rightly or wrongly. And we think that those, because, we're thinking them, these things are very true, very concrete, very real, but we can break some of those down quite easily and move if we realize we have the power to do it. We are the boss, we're in control. And if it's true, that everything is, if everything is a dependent arising and therefore it's completely empty of existing from its own side, all the concepts that we're creating are just creations. There isn't anything else. There's nothing else except what we're labeling. There's nothing exists anywhere except, things that we're labeling. There's no real entity there anywhere to be found. But ultimately, that's where we're going with the Buddhist teachings. Everything the Buddha's taught us to get us to this realization of emptiness. We're dealing with the kind of the periphery of this, perhaps with the beginning modules of DB, just working out what the mind's doing and what concepts it's kind of getting upset by. There's lots of different ways. Obviously, we can talk about concepts of ourselves, in terms of emptiness, but also just concepts of this is going to bring me pleasure, this is going to bring me suffering, I should avoid this, I should have this. Concepts about how we identify ourselves with others. There's lots of different ways we can talk about concepts, right? But you have the power to change your attitude that eliminates some of those ideas using introspection, as I say, as Hollis mentioned, that mind that checks what's going on with the mind. And a lot of it is down to study. You have to study lots and lots in this religion. You have to study because you need to know all the different divisions of the antidotes. You've got to know your enemy inside out. There's another nice video, maybe I'll share it with you at some point. His Holiness was giving teachings in Washington, D.C., the Kala Chakra initiation once there. And he was talking about, the afflictions of the enemy. It's a battle, He was really strongly, using this war analogy. This is the enemy. They have to be defeated. This is the enemy we're living with, the afflictions. So it is a battle. But it's a joyful battle because in the end, all the positive states of mind are in touch with the reality. All the negative ones are based on wrong views. So it's just a case of figuring out the right view, and they're all gone. It's not like something concrete in there we have to actually remove that's real. They're just wrong views and wrong concepts, wrong projections. So in the end, truth will win out. But we have to do a lot of digging and a lot of research and study, and then meditation, right? So we're doing it. It's great. We're on the right path. We're doing all the right things. It's kind of a balance between finding, you know, a bit of power, which is the positive karma that we're creating all the time. We need the positive karma to be able to have any of these realizations. And we're doing the study so we know what we're supposed to realize, in which order and when and how. the recipes, we're learning the recipes to have the results. And then we're meditating as well, which is how we develop these realizations. You know, we're stabilizing mind with that karma abiding mind. Then we're analyzing these different things like precious human rebirth, refuge, karma, bodhicitta, compassion, emptiness. Just each time we do that, we're kind of creating more and more of an understanding. It's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. The more power we have with the positive karma, the deeper that goes. And at some point we'll go, yes, that's how things exist. And we'll never go back, and we'll be on our way. You know? So we're so privileged, and it's so exciting, this path to be on, and that enthusiasm we can bring into our meditation as well. You know, it's not a dull kind of state where we're cloudy and sleepy, and I'm holding it, but I don't really want to be here, and it's just boring doing nothing. But it's a really kind of powerful, enthusiastic mind that's kind of like super, super focused on the object. And it's like there. You know, and it's just the most exciting thing, and the mind's just kind of there right with it 100%, and the stream of awareness is kind of flowing through it. It's really special. So exciting to spend this time with you on this topic. Let's just do then a dedication together. So all the positive karmic seeds that we've planted in the mind since we started, we're kind of motivated with that wish, refuge, and bodhicitta, the wish to get ourselves out of samsara, and the wish for all others to come with us by our full enlightenment. So then we have a substance now, we have something to dedicate with all those positive karmic seeds. So now we're just going to make sure that they're sealed with this view of emptiness and bodhicitta, so that there becomes causes for that to actually happen. So we're dedicating them as causes to become fully enlightened, to have all the realizations of the Lamrim, from all the way from Guru devotion through to all the realizations of High Yoga Tantra, everything in between. Dedicating to the life and health of our teachers, so that we can understand these teachings from beings who have the realizations already, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and to hear from the people who got these is very special. And in the meantime, you know, until we get to enlightenment, we dedicate for all those beings who are suffering right now around the world, all the animals, humans, in different realms, and not just this world, around the universe, wherever their beings exist, kind of bring them into our hearts and think, here, it's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get there, right? I'm going to help. So just hold, you know, something that means something to you, something powerful for the dedication thought for a couple of moments. Remembering all the time that you, the dedication we're doing, those sentient beings, the seeds themselves are all completely empty, existing from their own side. There's nothing whatsoever from the side of the objects, all merely labeled by the mind. We'll recite the verse together in Tibetan. Janju san chorim bojim ake panam ke gyuji kewa nyam pame payam gone gondu pewa sho. Thank you, everybody. So 2 more weeks of how to meditate left. Have some practice if you can of the 9-round breathing. Get familiar with it between now and next week, and then let's come back to that and see how it went. And then next week and we'll continue with the sessions. Thank you so much, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Have a lovely week.
See you, everybody. Thanks, Gary.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye. See ya.